Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you are well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too, and let's crack on with today's first story. Much love guys. Now today's first story comes from our very own subreddit r/Mark Narrations. Feel free to share your own stories over there if you choose to do so, but today's story comes from Unlikely Cap 713. Does come with an update as well, and says, am I the arsehole for not sharing the surprises in the dingy house that was my share of the inheritance? Throw away because I have a family on my main. Trigger warnings of death and cancer, so as always, timestamps are down in the description if you want to skip the story, of course. I, 37 female, have 2 siblings, 43 male and 29 female. For the sake of this post, I will call them Mason and Brittany. Our father died when we were young due to an undiagnosed heart problem. His parents had gifted them an old family homestead on a lot of land at their wedding and helped a lot to keep our family above water before they passed. Our mother finally found her feet after about 5 years of deep depression and did well for our family. But she was also very frugal. We had good clothing but no fancy vacations. Our mother had ignored signs of bad health for years, even when we tried to go get her to see someone for it. She passed away recently due to late-stage cancer, leaving us with a lot. My siblings each got more than $150,000 in money, sentimental but expensive items and furniture. I did not get the money. I received the house, the land and some items. The house and land, which had been sold off bit by bit over the years due to Mum's declining health and inability to properly tend to it, is worth far below the $150,000 my siblings received. I'd moved in with my mother near her end, and it really was only supposed to be temporary, as I believed the house would be sold after her passing and the money split 3 ways. I already had a plan to roommate with a friend and her family after my mum's death, to make that process go more smoothly. Most of my stuff has been sitting in storage for almost a year. As the only one who worked from home, I could watch the home health workers and nurses to make sure they were being kind, doing their jobs and not stealing. Mostly it was to make sure they treated my mother with respect and kindness, but my brother did worry about someone walking off with a wedding ring since she was so attached to it. We all agreed for it to be placed in with her ashes, so I made a little setup and took care of her. My siblings came by frequently, 3 to 6 times a week, each of them. Mason had 2 kids and Brittany only has 1, but they visited as well. Though not as much near the end because it was hard for them. So, in the weeks leading up to her death, my mother had me pack up what items went to who in large boxes and sent them off to the side. My siblings hated me doing this, but understood it was what she wanted. The will was read, they checked their boxes to make sure Mum didn't miss anything when telling me to pack, and they left me to my house. Weeks passed and I finally felt like I could start doing things to the house. Now, I did say the house was dingy. It's not worth $150,000, but the housing market is crazy, so I thought it was a bit of luck. It needs repairs: the roof, the chimney, the water heater, some pipes, the doors and windows for heating purposes, and everything inside is so darkly painted or made of wood that just sucks out all of the light. I immediately had people checking the roof, the chimney and the water heater. My siblings offered to lend me the money, but I declined as I had been saving for a while to buy an apartment or something small since it is only me. I could also rent rooms for the local college students to get some of that money back. I picked out paints for different rooms but decided to leave the wood flooring. As I started going through everything in the house, which had specifically been left to me as stated in the will, I began finding things. Money and books, and there are so many books. Money taped under beds, money folded into the fancy sheets, money hidden in the teapot and cups that had been passed down in the family, which we had never been allowed to touch in fear we might break them. I found jewelry in different boxes, hidden in the attic, the vents, in sock drawers. Some of it was so gaudy it had to be costume, but I put it all together. Thank goodness I did, and took it to be appraised. The worth of the jewelry is nearly half of what my siblings got. Even the would-be costume jewelry is worth something. Even now, I'm still finding things. I found antique items, fancy watches, untouched clothing and bags with price tags still on them, belts and shoes still in their boxes. All of this was tucked away, apparently hidden and not talked about. Some of the clothing still had receipts, and since neither I nor my sister can wear them, I took them back to see if I could get the refunds or started selling them online. Since again, everything left in the house was specifically left to me. I took the cash and used it to help pay for the immediate repairs, and it almost covered the whole thing. I looked through the jewelry and kept what I liked, which was very little as I'm not into that sort of thing, and put aside some for my sister and my brother's daughter. I liquidated the rest and put that into savings. I also put aside some of the bags and belts and watches for my siblings and their families. We can't fit the clothes, but those things are easier to swap around. I invited everyone over and gifted them the items, telling them that I had found them while I was cleaning everything out and thought they may like to have them. Everyone was happy to get them, and there wasn't much bickering among the kids. They asked what else I found, and I explained the jewelry I kept and the clothing I was selling off. My brother got a weird look on his face and asked if I had found any money. I told him I had, but tried to downplay it as mostly change and loose bills. He asked to see the money, and I grabbed a giant water refill container I'd started storing all the coins in. He told me that was a lot of coins and asked if I was going to use it for the laundromat since I left them all loose. I rolled my eyes because I have a washer and dryer set. I told him there was no point in cashing them in until I cleaned the whole house. He told me to let them know so we could all split that and the money I got from selling the clothing. When I asked why, he said, so we can split it. I asked him why would I split it when they'd all gotten large cash inheritances, sentimental and expensive things, and some other things. I literally got the house, the problems, the cleanup, and the nice things I did find that I thought they might like, handed over without being asked to. He told me I didn't have to be a greedy asshole about it and to never mind. My sister gave me the side eye but didn't say anything. But I feel guilty for misleading how much I actually found, even though it was all put towards making the house better. To be clear, all of my mother's debts were paid and she had money set aside for the funeral service and cremation. So, am I the arsehole? Now firstly, I just want to say I'm sorry for the loss of your parents. And I feel like this one was a pretty simple one from me, from the many stories we've read in Inheritance and things before, and that you're not the arsehole. This felt intentional from your mother to me. And it was specified that they get a lump sum of cash each and you get the money with the rest of the belongings inside. And as I get older, I just come to realize that, and it should be an obvious thing, but it just becomes more and more obvious as the years go on that people are responsible for their own behavior. And if brother's going to cause an issue over this, then that's very much a him problem. You shouldn't feel guilty about this. The only mistake possible is actually mentioning it in the first place, but that's still a him problem if he's going to act the way he is about it. And I just find it incredibly sad that this happens when inheritances and money comes around. And I'm sorry you're having to deal with this. Dizzy Eye 5257 says, no, she left them money. She left you the house and contents and all the work. LV Borzoi replies that saying two things. One, brother's reaction shows the no good deed goes unpunished. You were nice and gave them some gifts and he wants your share of inheritance now. 2. Please take all the cash to a coin dealer before you bank it. I had some old bills from my grandfather. Face value was about $150. But they were from the 20s, 30s and 40s and the dealer paid me $1,200 for them. Worth more than my carefully curated coin collection. Jewel Flip says not the arsehole. You got the house and all it contained. If the money they received was well invested, would you expect to get a third of it? Nope. Did they offer to compensate you for the house being worth less than the cash they received? Nope. You could have done nothing to the house and never found the cash, but the fact is, the house and its contents belong to you. They can be bitter about it, but that's the way the will was written. It's a bit crass of them though. Normal Fishing 9824 replies to that one and says yes, they seemed happy when they thought they were doing better than you out of it. They didn't offer to split things equally then. It's only now they're not doing as well as they thought that they can complain. If you hadn't been generous with what you had found, they would have never have known. I hope you've learned your lesson now. Not the arsehole. What's in the house is yours explicitly. Keep it. K Sarah 27 replies to that one and says, in my comments, I mentioned the fact that I bet that is the reason her mother and everything packed up for them, because she didn't want them pawning through the house. She knew that if they went searching for stuff and found some money, that they would keep looking for more and take it. She wanted to make sure the siblings would get their stuff and leave the house and the contents for OP. X-Raider V1 says, wow, greedy and entitled much. I'd have taken back what you offered to give them on the basis of you got your share of the inheritance and are now trying to be greedy mooches. Not the arsehole. Itchy Discussion says, I've said a part of the comment already, OP should roll the nickels up and shove them up his butt. Don't spend it all in one place. Sorry you have shit for siblings. And a final comment from Trev4A86 says, not the arsehole. Your mum knew what she was doing. They got cash and I bet some of the items she gave them had money tucked in it. Because why was that the first question your brother asked? He probably figures there is more and he's being the greedy arsehole. Same with sister. They know and have talked but not telling you anything. You were nice enough to share even more. You didn't have to and are not obligated to share more. Even if you sell the house, they're not entitled to a percentage unless specified in the will. Death and money bring out the worst in people, especially family. The last few months with my dad, that was one of the big topics, is that he was worried that money might come between us in some way, just from like stories he's heard. And whenever he'd talk about it, it absolutely tear me into that, while he was going through everything he was going through with his own cancer, he was worrying about his family being torn apart by money. And that absolutely broke my heart. And all I could say to him is every time, I promise you, Dad, nothing like that is going to happen. And then I would discuss it with my brothers and they would relay that information to him as well. But yeah, it's absolutely heartbreaking when you do see something like this with families. So Unlikely Cap kindly came in with their update as well. Firstly, I wanted to thank everyone for their kind words and bits of advice. I felt much better after reading so many of the not the arsehole comments. I also took to heart the shut your mouth comments, even if a few of them seemed a little rude. On to the update. My house, still feels weird saying and typing this, already had outside cameras due to when I moved in and installed them. But I did go and add more to the property line. Inside the house in key spots and around the garage. I also put up no trespassing signs while I looked through companies that do proper fences. The property is just small enough I can swing the fence. I did change the locks as soon as I read the advice to do so. I hadn't thought about that since I work from home. Mum also kept a spare hidden in a plant because my sister used to lose everything constantly, so I made sure to remove it and not replace it with a new one. It's a good thing I did all of this because 2 days after my initial post, I had to run into town for groceries and a few quick errands. I live on the outskirts with neighbours a bit of a distance either way, so they wouldn't notice anyone stopping by. I got a notification on my phone about movement and I checked because I wasn't expecting any packages. My brother was getting out of his car, looked around and checked the windows. He tried his key in the door and got upset it didn't work. He checked the flower plant and kicked it over. The cameras around the house let me communicate, so I just said, "That was rude," into the speaker. He jumped and spun around to see nothing. I asked him what he wanted and he demanded to know why I put up cameras. I said, because I'm a single woman living in the woods, you dumb shit. Great response. He shifted from foot to foot before saying he would be back so we could talk, and he left. I messaged the video evidence of him trying to get in while I wasn't home to him, his wife, my sister, and her fiance. With the message I sent, I changed the locks because I don't know who Mum gave them out to, like her friends, and I have cameras. Because of this attempt to get in while I'm not home, no one will be getting the new key. I don't just randomly try to get into your house when you're not home. He sent me a lot of nasty texts after that, trying to shame me for doing that. I told him he shouldn't be doing things he doesn't want others to know about, and that it's a reflection on him, not me. He told me I was a bitch and blocked me. My sisters think I went too far by telling his wife because she is threatening to take the kids to her mum's, and she thinks I went too far by showing her fiance because now he doesn't want him to have keys to theirs for emergencies. Somehow I get the feeling this isn't over. Time to adopt a very big dog. My question after that is, was he always like this? Has he ever showed this kind of behavior before, or has it just come out since the inheritance and these kind of things? Because it's one thing to complain about the inheritance, still shitty in my opinion, But it's another to try and sneak into your house. Obviously, he still thinks he has some entitlement to it, but it's an absolute another thing to do that. And like I said before, and you said in this post, that's a reflection on him, not you. And the same goes for like your sister moaning about telling his wife. Again, it's a reflection on him. Chrissy Lee says to the OP, you need to file a police report and get a paper trail going. Also have them speak to him, even if you don't file actual charges, so that he knows you are serious. You know his intentions here, and you're right, it's not over. Get your paper trail going now, so you aren't facing an even bigger uphill battle later. Spaceling says, I'm super sorry that this is driving you and your siblings apart. Greed is such a shitty emotion, and your brother is definitely just getting consequences for his actions. I really hope your sister won't listen to his tantrums and that your relationship won't also fall apart. Dogs are always a good idea, first and foremost, because living alone is much more beautiful when you have pets. Mekia says, your sister just doesn't want to see your brother hurt and upset, even though that's what he's doing to you. Both of their partners are likely appreciative that you showed them, so they know how he can act. Something else might have him being petty and hateful towards him at some point, and if they are that upset, they likely already saw signs of it. I think you did the right thing. You didn't expose a private conversation or anything. He tried to screw you over behind your back, and you showed what happened. You had enough backlash as it was. You didn't need a he said, she said. This was you putting your foot down, saying enough is enough. But after all that, I really hope things do settle down for you so you can grieve properly and hopefully move on with your life in the most peaceful way possible, OP. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. We all really do appreciate it. But now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of Unlikely Cap's situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And let's have another story from our own subreddit. From Just a Little Red Panda, titled, Am I the Arsehole for not being over my medical trauma? Hello, this is my very first post and I'm on mobile, and I hope you can decide if I'm a butthole or not. I need to explain a fair amount of context for this issue, so I apologize for the length. I, 39 female, am from the UK. I'm autistic. It's relevant to mention this, as it magnified the impact my medical emergency had on me. Back in August 2022, I was hospitalized and needed to have emergency surgery on my right leg when it got an infection, which I didn't find out until weeks later was the life-threatening necrotizing fasciitis, aka flesh-eating disease infection. I was facing having my leg amputated, and it was the very first time I'd ever needed an operation. But thankfully, my leg was saved. I ended up having to stay in hospital for 5.5 weeks on multiple, very high-strength antibiotics to deal with the infection, and it was a hugely traumatic experience for me. I was in isolation in a room on my own for the first week and a half in ICU, and it felt like literal hell. I've never experienced anything like that before. I only had visitors for a couple of hours a day besides medical staff, and I was so scared and felt alone, and the lack of human interaction was agonizing. I just felt terrified and deeply homesick. Even when I was finally on a ward with other people, I still felt so afraid and began to feel more like a thing than a person, especially when so many medical students were brought by doctors to see me during the day when the dressings on my leg were changed. I understand it was a chance for them to see what necrotizing fasciitis looked like because it's very rare, but it didn't really help how I felt about myself. I had breakdowns frequently and began to think I was never going home. To add to all that was the stress of worrying about my elderly parents, whom I still live with and care for. I'm their primary carer and only work part-time due to this, so my 3 older siblings had to step up and help them while I was in hospital. I'm barely scratching the surface of everything I had to go through while in hospital, but I don't want to make this too long. But in mid-September, I was finally allowed to go home. However, 2 days after, I discovered I'd caught COVID while in hospital. So not only did I have to deal with my legs slowly healing, I had to recover from COVID, which affected my throat and stomach. Plus, a week after I was out of hospital, my father had a minor heart attack from all the stress and had to spend nearly a week in hospital himself, and I felt so guilty. It took until March 2024 until the surgical wounds on my leg finally closed up and healed. I did get CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, in late 2023, and it's helped a lot. But I still get nervous being around medical places. I worry whenever I get a sore throat. I occasionally get flashbacks. usually triggered by smell, and I still get nightmares sometimes. It's also important to say I believe I got the infection from strep A turning invasive, as I had a sore throat for a week before I ended up in hospital. I apologise for the length of the context, but now onto the actual issue, where I think I might be an arsehole. Earlier this week, I was doing some needed grocery shopping and I bumped into someone I knew from my workplace and I got talking to them. They asked how I was doing and how my leg was, and I explained it was healed now, but I still had worries, especially as I'd had a nightmare the night before. A woman who was a complete stranger and had apparently been eavesdropping on the conversation butted in and asked what kind of nightmare I'd had. I felt nervous and put off, but I'm a submissive person and I explained about my leg and about the nightmare. The woman scowled and said, "Why are you still letting something that happened to you 2 years ago affect you? You sound like you're just milking your experience for sympathy. Get over yourself and get over your trauma. It doesn't last forever." I felt absolutely stunned and I immediately teared up, as I easily get overwhelmed by my emotions, especially when someone is having a go at me. I felt panicked and just wanted to get out of there, so I hurried away without saying anything. Fortunately, the woman didn't follow me and I genuinely don't remember if the person I'd first spoken with said anything. I know I shouldn't let words of an ignorant stranger get to me, but I always overthink things and it's caused my anxiety to worsen, thinking that the people around me believe I should be over what happened to me and I'm fed up whenever I mention it. I haven't told anyone about what happened and that's making me feel worse. Am I the arsehole for still being affected by my medical trauma, even though it happened 2 years ago? Absolutely not the arsehole in this situation, of course. The person was rude from the very beginning to eavesdrop on you and then dive into your conversation. Trauma doesn't have a date where it just ends, where you get over it or anything like that. Everyone deals with it differently, and you're clearly still in the process of healing from it, which was a hugely traumatic event for you. You're not milking it. Ignore any arsehole that says that. Don't let the words of an ignorant Burke make you doubt yourself or all your feelings in this. And I know I've mentioned my dad already once in this video, but when you was talking about a moment, I'm not trying to take away from your experience at all, but just try to relate in it in some way. And you was talking about when you was in isolation and how you felt there and how you felt like literal hell while she was in there, the lack of human interaction. And can I just tell you, when my dad was going through his treatment and he had an issue going on with his heart that was to do with the cancer, so he had to be rushed into hospital and kept there for tests, but he was kept in a room by himself because of COVID, etc., etc. No one was allowed to visit him or anything. And that was the first time I heard my dad cry. I was stood outside looking up at his window and I was just hearing him cry on the phone, and it absolutely tore me to pieces. He said, "I just need to get out of here. Please come get me out of here." And of course I tried getting in to see him, but no one was having any of it. So I was phoning the staff up there, who of course were super busy with everything that was going on at the same time. But that was a hugely scary experience for him and for our family to hear our dad in that way, you know. So once again, I'm incredibly sorry that you have gone through all that, but once again, don't let anyone downplay your feelings on this. But Firefly Raven says not the arsehole, but that stranger is a huge one. For context, I used to work in a hospital. I have PTSD caused by another situation, but the stuff I saw attending codes and various situations in the trauma room still causes me problems. That was over 10 years ago, and it didn't even happen to me or someone I knew. I was just a witness to it. The experience you went through hit you on several levels and it was prolonged. You are learning to live your life with those memories and feelings. It's not about getting over it. One phrase I was told about living with my PTSD is you have to engage with the dragon that bit you. That stranger had no idea what you went through. She has no right to judge you. She is no dragon fighter like you are. An apologetic arsehole says I didn't even have to read your post to make a determination, but of course I did. Everyone processes trauma at different rates. Matt Harridan had no business in your conversation and even less telling you to get over your trauma because it was 2 years ago. You're 100% not the arsehole, but she sounds like a right, see you next Tuesday. X-Raider V1 says trauma is a real thing and it can last a very long time, with the sufferer healing on their own time and under their own terms. Absolutely no one else has any right to dictate when you should get over it. Those who dare to presume to can go and sit on a cactus and pick a fight with a cobra chicken, Canadian goose, and are absolutely daft sausage muppets. Raider, legend, not the arsehole, and I'm sorry you experienced such a completely unpleasant person and wish you a complete recovery. But now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? How would you deal with it if it was you? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Now, just a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart for getting involved in today's stories. Your love, your support, your time always means the absolute world to me. Thank you so much to the OPs who shared your stories today in our own subreddit. And if you want to share your own story, go to Reddit r/MarkNarrations and feel free to share yours there. Always love to see it. If it has a conclusion as well, even more so. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next one. Take care and much love.